So today I went on a little expedition to Doncaster, and my driving was horrendous because I lost about half an hour just pootling about trying to figure out where I was supposed to park. But anyway, I got in Doncaster Toy Fair, first one I've ever been to, and it was huge. I mean, really, really huge. It was a Doncaster race course. I thought it was going to be signposted really well off the A1, and it really wasn't at the point I came off the A1, so it took me a little while to get there. But it needs a lot of time to actually walk around it, because there were so many stalls set up, so many tables, incredible. So I saw Gareth from Cosmic Toys, who was the one person I knew would be there. It isn't the only one that happens, obviously, in the entire country. There are others of a similar ilk elsewhere, but this was the nearest one to me that I was able to get to. And I went with I want this list, because I thought to myself, I must make sure that when I go, I know what I'm going to get, so I don't get lots of random stuff. So I got lots of random stuff and none of the stuff on my want list because I couldn't find any of it. I wanted just a pod for Space 1999 Eagle. Couldn't get it. Didn't want to spend the money on an entire Eagle plus pod. So I left that. Other things like Death's Head figure I just could not see. So although I came away empty-handed in the sense of what I thought I was going to get, nevertheless I did grab a few bits and bobs which I'm going to show you now, and it was just one of those times when I was sort of invoking the advice from people like Leicester Vintage and Old Toy Shop and just kind of getting the stuff that was quirky, that I liked the look of, and that didn't break the bank if for some reason I want to get rid of it later and it doesn't sell, great. But it was really interesting to see something like this in the flesh, because when I'm looking for something on eBay, I'm looking for a very particular thing. So I'm hunting with a very narrow focus. So I do a search, I find one thing, and that's kind of what I'm after. Whereas what I found was that going round, I was scanning the content of the table so much that it took a long time to try and sort of take in each one and make sure I wasn't missing anything. So I think it's the sort of thing where if you can go with someone else to help sort of scout what you're looking for, it probably saves you a lot of time. But you could actually have gotten in from 8 o'clock in the morning, and I didn't get there until like 4 hours plus after that. So I'm quite sure a lot of stuff had already gone by the time I got there anyway. But most people didn't start picking up until right at the last packet up until sort of the last minute. So I think even if you did arrive late, you would still be able to find some stuff. There was train stuff mixed in, so that helped me a little bit because I wasn't interested in that, so I could just sort of leave that and move on. But some tables were kind of combining the two, so it was a bit tricky for me to just sort of ignore them. But I do think that, if there was something in particular you wanted there, you probably would have a good chance of finding it if you had enough time to find the right stalls. And I think that would be the trick. But there were loads of Masters of the Universe stuff. Didn't see many Funko Pops and stuff like that, but a lot of older stuff, a lot of Dinky stalls, really nice boxed sort of Corgi and Matchbox and Dinky as well, which was going for a bomb. So a really nice Batmobile. Corgi Batmobile, red bat sign tyres, completely complete, in box, 450 quid, from the most innocuous little seller, bless him, who I got some Britain Space from, which I'll show you in a bit. But it was one of those classic ones where I just thought that's a really nice thing to see, kind of out in the flesh, so to speak, in the wild, because you do see them from time to time on eBay and places, but just sort of seeing it out there was really lovely. So it was only a little under £5 to get in, I think. So it's not going to break the bank to go in, even as a family. And there are some seriously good bargains to be had. I mean, there was stuff I got which I know would have cost me a lot more on eBay. So I'm saving the postage, and I'm saving maybe sort of slightly overrated eBay prices. Because the thing with eBay is, the selling prices are dictated by what everyone else has sold it for in the past, effectively. So if it's a limited market and people have just sort of set a relatively high price on it, that high price is going to stick, if I'm understanding it correctly. And going to places like these fairs, you're more likely to get something cheaper because they know they've got to undercut those prices. So I think if you've got sort of cash in hand and you can afford to do it, then go down and try it. I also got some really great sort of supportive people who I didn't even buy from. But, there was a guy who was explaining to me that, yes, a Shadow 2 vehicle that is blue is a legitimate Shadow 2 vehicle. It's not necessarily a repaint, but he then went on to describe various sort of aspects of it that I needed to keep an eye out for to make sure that it was a genuine Dinky Shadow 2 blue version rather than one that, a different version that someone had repainted. So, the people there are really, really knowledgeable and helpful the vast majority of the time. Some make more contact with you than others, I think it's fair to say. But there was a lot of opportunity there if you were looking for a particular thing and, you haven't found it anywhere else. Give it a go because it's a lot of stuff in one place. I mean, I was amazed by the sheer volume of stock that the various tables had out. Because, it must be an incredible job to actually haul all this stuff out and to have to pack it away again a few hours later. It's quite a risk for them, I guess, in some respects. And there were people coming from sort of Birmingham, and there's Matlock, and just a lot of effort got into it by people to get up to these places, because I guess there's only so many opportunities like this in a year to just sort of gather, and it lets the dealers trade between themselves as well, I imagine. I definitely saw one dealer who seemed to have bought a chunk of stuff from another dealer. So that was quite nice, I thought, because it gives them an opportunity to do stuff like that as well, if they're short on a particular item or whatever. So without further ado, I'm going to shift my setup around and move on to what I actually got. So one of the interesting things about the fair was that not everyone there also had a shop. And I don't think not everyone there even has an online presence or anything like that. They literally just kind of turn up to these fairs having bought a table. So I can't really tell you where a lot of this stuff comes from because the people were just kind of there and they weren't giving out business cards and stuff. But anyway, let's start out with something completely random. As much of it probably is going to be. I think this is a Firefly from Thunderbirds. But I'm not at all sure of what flavour of Firefly it might be in terms of its actual sort of manufacturer, because I can't find anything on it that says who made it at all. Now I'm literally looking at these for the first time since I got there, but since I got back. But the belly of this particular beast is completely blank. So I just kind of picked it up on your chance that I could identify it later. But if anyone's got any ideas on who might have made this, I mean, it could just be a cheap knockoff. That's certainly possible. But the gaps in the front of it are very specific, because I remember this being, original series Thunderbird having this and having a sort of an explosive charge launcher that could come out through its heat shield bulldozer bit. So I'm pretty sure that is a legitimate Thunderbird toy. I just don't know where it's come from. So that was the first thing from this little stall in the corner. Now this I've just watched a making of Tron Legacy sort of documentary on YouTube just recently. So of course this is Clue. So this is the protagonist from Tron Legacy, and I just got it because it's a really nice figure, and I immediately recognised him from sort of the orange lines on his bodysuit. But I think it was quite a nice sort of representation of his helmet and stuff as well. I've got some Tron Legacy die-cast bits and bobs which I think are really good as well. So he's got his disc on the back there. Well, I'm saying he's got his disc. I wonder if his disc is actually missing, because that's where it should be, but there isn't a separate item there, so he might well be missing a disc, because I bet the disc was detachable, so his hands could then sort of could grip it. But still, it's a nice big chunky solid action figure, so I'm quite happy to pick that up. And the thing is, I paid about like £3 for these things, all together. So it's crazy. I mean, you probably paid 20 quid for a new. I picked up. I imagine this is a Batman versus Superman Batman. It's very much sort of an armoured version, although his actual cowl isn't armoured for whatever reason. But it came with a cape, so that's often the sort of thing that's missing, I think, with these sorts of figures. So I'm guessing that I don't know. I mean, his boots remind me of something out of the Dark Knight Returns, but still, it's a nice figure. So again, I just randomly grabbed him. Now this one was again. I was just watching a YouTube video on this the other day, and this is a Tiger toy from the rebooted version of Thundercats. So I don't know if you're familiar, but obviously Thundercats was massive in the 80s. Everyone knows that. But they did try and revive it in, I think it was 2011, if I remember rightly. So it was quite a recent attempt to bring it back, but it didn't pan out, and so it got cancelled after, I think, just after one season. But of course they did do toy tie-ins, and this is a very articulated. I can use my other hand actually. So even his wrists rotate, which is pretty cool. But I just thought, I've never liked the original Thundercats toys. I know, heresy, but I just think that this is so much better because he's got sort of proper looking armour on and stuff. His face is really well sculpted, really, really nice colours and everything else. So yeah, I mean, I really like this. Just a damn shame that the reboot didn't work for them, but that toy's epic. So I thought it would be, because I don't have any of the old school Thundercats toys. I thought that would be the best alternative. Now this I've got, I think this is another. I'm guessing, I'm not sure if this is supposed to be Clue, or if it's just a sort of a generic sort of Tron Legacy action figure. It's hard to know, but again, see, he's actually got a disc. I'm not sure if that is separable. It doesn't seem to be. So I think he's got a sort of a hardwired disc on the back of him there, but that's okay. So again, it was just another little example of a sort of a Tron Legacy item, basically, which you don't see that much of. I really rate the film. I like the film. But I said I got some die-cast toys from it, but that is about it. And finally, because I was offering him a tenner and I'd only spent £8, I felt it might be a trap. So I decided to get an Akbar. He was only a couple of quid, and now that I've actually got some light on him, I can see that he probably is a Kenner sort of original era Akbar, which is fine. I'm saying that. Did I say 1980 on it? Can't be 1980 because that's too early. But anyway, so yeah, I think that's a legitimately sort of ancient version of Akbar, which is quite good because he's funny because he says it's a trap a lot. So it's all good. So what else? Let's get another. Yeah, so this is from the same stall. Now I was quite proud of myself for this because if you can imagine it, there was a table that was just full of action figures, completely full of action figures, Masters of the Universe, all sorts of stuff, just scattered. And I noticed out of the corner of my eye, the corner of a comic. And I've just done a big comics video, and look, now I've got more comics. So, but the ones that caught my eye you'll see shortly. So I've got whatever this is, Dark Horse. They're in varying states, but so I've got a little bit of Dark Horse, a little bit of Green Arrow DC. And this again, I paid like £3 for all these comics. It's crazy. No idea what this is, but Dark Horse again. I don't even know what years some of these are from. Federal Bureau of Physics, apparently. So this is for mature readers, apparently. Oh, there's a Vertigo imprint, yeah. So I mean, yeah, it was an interesting little mix. But now look at this. This is what caught my eye. Well, it wasn't this one specifically, but what I love about this is it says, "Bring me the head of Bumblebee," and it's the head that's the original Bumblebee toy, which of course is never what he looks like in the cartoons, like ever. But it's on this front cover, which is great. And of course, this is Shockwave. And he was actually in control of the Decepticons on Earth for a while in the original comics series. But I love this because this is that takes me right back. It's this little Optimus Prime in sort of mid-fire mode and as a sort of an ident in the top left corner. So that's cool. 30 pence. That's all they were in those days. 30 pence. Now, the state of this is, I mean, it's sellotape back together. But it's Plight of the Bumblebee rather than Flight of the Bumblebee. And I just recently got a very sort of just a single issue of Transformers. I think it set me back a few pounds. So to get this many for virtually nothing, and it's got Robo Capers in it. It's all good. So it's just nice to get some examples. This one is in pretty rough shape, but the covers are It's nice to have the covers because you don't always get the covers with the collected edition. So that's quite nice. So that's Ravage on the front there. Again, really badly stuck together cover there with Shockwave and Buster Witwicky. Oh, now I remember. I think I know what's in this one. This is it's a bit of a jump to issue 138 there, but I think this is Jeff. Yeah, this is Jeff Senior. I remember this. I always remember the Jeff Senior art strips. So this is these ladies who have somehow managed to acquire a tank going up against the Decepticon Swindle, as I recall. But then, of course, his mates turn up, which somewhat unbalances the field of battle. But it's all good. It's all good. As the guy said to me, though, the quality of the paper this is printed on is pretty shocking, actually. Especially the later ones, I think. Introducing Jetfire. So that's what Jetfire looked like in the comics. And, of course, he doesn't look like a Robotech Valkyrie in the comics because they couldn't do that. So although his toy is a straight rip-off of a Robotech Valkyrie, in the comics and in the cartoons he doesn't look like that, so they had to change his jet form quite significantly. I have absolutely no idea what that is. A source book from the 1920s. What the? Okay, I didn't notice that. I literally just picked up this pile. He just said take the lot for like £3 or something. So I did. I felt it would be rude not to. I know what's in this one as well. This one's that's really tatty, bless it. That has definitely seen better days. But that's Prime up against the Predacons, as I recall. Run amok and run about. Again, slightly wonky cover. Transformers and Action Force. And that's number 158, so into March 1988 now. Oh, and a bonus Visionaries mini comic inside. So this one will be quite interesting to have a look at, actually. So there's the Visionaries guy. It's really falling apart. Wow. Let's have a look. Oh, there we go. Free comic Visionaries. Wow, cool. I do have a Visionary somewhere, and I cannot find him for love nor money. I reckon my son might have done something with him, but equally it might just be still buried in a box somewhere. It's entirely possible. It's quite interesting. Actually, I don't remember there being a comic of it as such, but I imagine this is a promotional tie-in kind of job. And there we go. And the various. I had Sindar. It's Sindar who's missing somewhere. That's quite a nice bit of sort of comic toy archaeology there. Good cover, that. I like that cover. It's Buster again, out of his depth yet again. But that's back to number 59. Attacking Autobots. So he's not in too bad condition. This one is quite interesting. Went to Special Transformers the movie. So that's the comic of the film. And it's quite thick as well. I mean, there's a lot of pages there. So that'll be quite interesting to have a look at. Again, it's one of those ones where I couldn't swear that I'd actually got it at the time, but it looks like it's quite a good reproduction of the film. And this is the one that caught my eye. I just saw Galvatron grimacing at me from underneath this pile of action figures, and the more I dug, the more comics I found lurking under the action figures. So I was quite chuffed to pick those up because it wasn't a comics fair at all in any way, shape or form. So that was a complete bonus. Let's have a look at this. Yeah. So, again, didn't mean to get more of these. I really didn't. But look, it's Eagle Moss Star Trek models again. Can't seem to get away from them. It's hilarious. So these were three for £10. That's just insane. You'd be lucky if you got one for £10 back in the day, let alone three. So they were just trying to empty. I think they were literally just trying to get rid of their stock of them. I don't know why, because Star Trek Picard Season 3 having just come out, I would have thought they'd be able to sell them, and they may well have sold others that were more obviously kind of major ships by the time I got there, you know. But these fill in some gaps in my collection, so it's a relatively legitimate pickup. So this is the very, very, very asymmetric Borg ship. I can't remember what the episode name is now, but I immediately recognise it. It featured in the Star Trek Next Generation pinball game as well. That's a random bit of knowledge for you. But yeah, so as I said, it would have been rude not to, basically. Ironically, I went with a duplicate Eagle Moss model in my bag to sell to somebody, anybody, and I failed to do so. Now this one I don't have, but it was such a big model for a standard size model. I thought it would be rude not to, and I think that this, and I'm purely basing this on the fact that that is a Klingon emblem on the wing, which I was quite proud of myself for noticing, in the time I didn't have left to buy anything. I think this is a Klingon shuttle, or well, shuttle/cargo vessel. And I think it turned up in Star Trek Enterprise. And I think that Archer ended up on board it and trapped on board it for some reason, as I recall. So that's quite a cool ship, because its sheer size is impressive for a standard model. And it was £3.33 and some change. And then I got this one. I'm not quite sure what this one is. I want to think that it's... I think it might be a Voth City ship. I'm going to have a check. If you remember in another video I mentioned that this is what you do to find out what they're called. I actually showed this to the guy on the stall because I don't think he knew how to find this out. And I am indeed correct. It is indeed a Voth City ship. So if you're ever wondering what these ships are, the only way to find out from this type of packaging is to sneak the plastic layers out and have a look at the underside of the Eagle Moss label, and that will tell you what it is. And that is definitely one I do not have in my collection, so I definitely didn't duplicate this time, because I've had a look quite recently at what I've got, having failed to avoid duplication the last time, so that's good. Yeah, some pretty quirky pickups. Now this is from the stall that had the original Batmobile, Corgi Batmobile on it. And this is just a really nice size of kit. And I just fancied it because it was still boxed. I actually think, looking at it, I may have a DeLorean that's in a similar box. So this may be part of a sort of a reissue of, sort of 80s kind of vehicles. Who's it actually by? GM Jada. Dicky Toys, apparently. Germany. Interesting. Oh, ironically, it's actually produced it comes from down the road in Bradford. How bizarre. I'm going to have to look up Simba Toys now and see who they are. That's funny. But yeah, it's nice size, sort of, it's big enough to really sort of see it on a shelf. So for display purposes, even if I'm not actually collecting them, I thought that was a good crack. I think this is where I got the Star Trek toys from. Vintage Toy Exchange. There's a Facebook and Insta for them there. In Matlock. Now, I'm not sure if I visited them before. I think I might have done. If it's the place I'm thinking of. I've been in there before and got some Lego from in there. So that could have been from them, I think. Now, what else have I got? Yeah, now I do not normally pick up records, but these are just staring me in the face, and I have a recipient in mind for this one. This is the Time Lord's Doctor in the TARDIS. Hi, I'm Ford Time Lord. I'm a car and I've made a record, apparently. Ironically, I have no means of playing a vinyl single in this house, I believe. So that's something I might need to sort out. And there's even a nice message to Dear Punter. The name is 4-Time Lord, and I'm the leader of the group. Okay. Cool. Superman thing was my biggest break. Okay, interesting. I'll have a little read of that later. I'm hoping that the single's in decent nick. I didn't actually grab it out to have a look at it, but I probably should have done. Well, it's the right one, so that's a good sign. Looks like it should be okay. That's cool. But this one really intrigued me, and this one caught my eye. The tripods. Now, this is a super obscure BBC series, and it's not even War of the Worlds, because it actually isn't War of the Worlds. This tripods, and it's based on a book, and actually a series of books, which I believe I do have lurking on my shelf somewhere. And the actual TV series I think it was quite short-lived, but they did have the actual sort of aliens represented in it. And the tripods, these machines here, this is exactly as it was in the series. And I'm not even sure they were CGI. I think they may have built them to some extent. I'm sure someone could correct me if I'm wrong. But just a really fascinating thing to pick up because of the pictures on it. Because, this was 1980. You can see here 1984. So this is not a CGI thing. They must have done. I mean, I don't know. It might be a composite, I suppose. So the Tripods is based on a trilogy of novels by John Christopher. The year is 2089. So we haven't got there yet. See, future of the past. See, but the style of life on Earth is more reminiscent of 1789. That's right. Yes, that's right. And they put a cap on people for control purposes. Yeah, really interesting. So yeah, it's kind of the opening theme and the closing theme, basically. I have no idea if I'd even remember them, but I just thought it was such a random thing to come across in a toy fair. So I couldn't not pick it up. I don't even know how much it was. Maybe paid $2.50 for each of those. Now, in fact, really interestingly, he had this box of Britain's space, and he also had. He told me that that someone had cleared him out of all the freestanding Britain space figures that he had, and he didn't really seem to know what to do with his Britain space stuff. But inside the box was this catalogue, and he was really sort of just he just basically told me, take what you want. So I could have taken the whole box, but I didn't really have a need for the entire box. But this is the Britain's toy catalogue from 1986, which is lovely because it means that I've now got this sort of reference point, which I can do a separate video on this in due course if people are interested. And there was quite a lot of agricultural Britons available there. But this is really interesting because these, and I didn't even realise it was in here, but I hoped it was because there was a picture of a white one on the front cover. See, all of this is a sort of a reissue of the original yellow and green spaceships that you got with this series. I think that one, for example, is new. That one was new. And I've never really seen any of this white and blue and red and white. I don't think I ever owned any of it because I'd probably moved on by this point, although it was only 86. But you can see all the sort of different figures here and so on that you could get at that point in time. That's quite an impressive looking beastie there. So I'm going to have a really good squint at this because this is Star Raiders, this is called, and this is Star Force. So I'm going to have a good squint at that later on because it's quite nice to have this physically. I think there is a very old website that's got all the catalogue on it as well. But obviously, as I've just picked this up, I thought I'd just flick through it with you. So there's various farm models. They're very agriculture-based, but they did the science fiction thing as well. And it's quite clever because it's quite a modular sort of construction system, so it's quite good fun. And it's very die-cast as well. Plastic interconnectors, but die-cast in the ships themselves. So it's all cool. Look at that helicopter. Another thing, before I forget about it completely, found a dinky fire engine that I remembered from my childhood, which had a sort of white spoked wheel on the back of it. And I've never quite managed to figure out which fire engine it was that I was thinking of, but it was a dinky one. So I saw those in boxes today as well for sale. So yeah, so I got I mean, I haven't set any of these up, but I got this because I like these. These are lethal. These are, I think I mentioned this in an earlier video, but these are properly die cast, and they are nasty. You could really gouge yourself with the corner of one of these. But you put little red balls in here, and then you can fire them out by flicking that. I haven't got any of the balls, at least not with this sort of pickup, but you can see where the interconnectors fit. So that just slots off that really easily. So they're quite good fun once you've got a few of them. And the unusual one that I picked up was this one. I mean, partly because it's got a random thing stuck on the top of it for no apparent reason, but this is really shiny and silvery, and I can only assume that it's part of that newer version of the line that I've just shown you in the catalogue. But that is not a colour scheme I've ever seen before in real life, ever. So that was quite interesting to pick up. I mean, I haven't got any more of it than that, but it just demonstrates that it existed. So it might give me something to look for in future auctions or whatever. Now this, I don't think I've picked this up before, but I've been meaning to for a while. He had about 3 examples of this. The problem with this is that these spokes always break, and as you can see, these ones are not complete. It's slightly better on this side, and this is one of those interesting ones where you can roll it along the floor, and the pilots stay upright because it's on the gyro. So it's quite clever, but you can also change their orientation in the actual the ship itself, and you've got that many connection points all along the outside of the saucer there. It means you can do all sorts of stuff with it. So it's really sort of nice, simple, clever system. And I got a few sort of spare bits off the back of that. This sort of hinged piece where so you can sort of do a sort of use it as a turret or whatever you want to do really. So it's really, really clever little system. And it's solid. I mean, that's a good sort of 40 years old now. And it's still going. And what else did I get? Looks like I didn't get quite as many figures as I thought I had when I picked it up. But got this guy, his little buggy, and there's the yellow equivalent of this. It may well be missing a canopy piece, I suspect, over the top of it. I could have sworn I'd put another one of the figures in, because he'll pop out quite happily. But that's just another example of. Had a nice little sort of pincer arm as well. On auctions, these are often broken for really obvious reasons, actually, because even that one's a little bit wobbly, but it is just about working happily. It's all good stuff. Right, what else did I get? You might be wondering. Well, I think that is actually it for that bag. So I'm onto my final bag of goodies. Now, let's see if anyone remembers this. As soon as I saw this, I had to grab it. It's completely random, but do you remember having these? This apparently is a Spider-Man web climber. But I don't know when I had one of these, it was to do with that. I think these slotted onto a little sort of belt. So you could slot them on and have a few with you at any given point in time. Made in Hong Kong, apparently. But of course the idea was that they just suckered onto things. See? So you could sort of throw it at the window or whatever, and it would just kind of stick on and possibly even sort of roll down like that. But as soon as I saw it, I just thought, yep, childhood, boosh, gotta have that. And it was quite funny because the people on the stall were just like sort of bemused as to what on earth it could possibly have been. But I'm pretty sure that's what it was. And I remembered in the car on the way home that you could sort of slot it on so you could carry a few of them at a time. But it still seems to be one piece, and I bet that would still work. I can't really sort of throw it at anything on camera for you, but it would definitely. I mean, it's. Can you hear that? Definitely still sticking. So there's that. What else did we get? I've got the bits that I didn't manage to get rid of here. And I've got this was the this I'll be looking at later because I didn't realise it was actually a booklet. I thought it was just a little card. But Sandown is the next one, I believe. So again, early bird entry from ATM, £12. Yeah, you have to pay more to get in early at Sandown. I think Leicester Vintage Toy Shop will be down there. So I don't know if it's Joanne Gav or who it is exactly, but I believe they're going to that one, but don't quote me on it. Better check with their Facebook for that. Yeah, so it's just, it really is as big as it looks in the photos. I mean, I wasn't sure exactly, which venue it was that I was looking at when I looked on it. But these are the 2023 dates. So Doncaster was the 19th of Feb. Sandown is Saturday the 25th. And then Stafford and Buxton, Bolton, NEC Birmingham. That'll be a huge one, I imagine. I don't think I've been to the NEC, actually. Back in Doncaster. Oh, that's good. In April. Okay, April 23rd. Back at Doncaster, if I can make that one. Which I might be able to, actually. Anyway. Sorry. And Sandown again in May. Stafford, Bolton, Doncaster, Coventry, Buxton, Stafford, but yeah, so obviously a fairly sort of quite sort of rotational basis for them. But yeah, it's so Doncaster is actually one of the bigger ones. So the Doncaster that says more than 350 stalls potentially, but at the NEC's got 550 stalls, and wow, that's impressive. I wonder how many. Doesn't say how many stalls. Oh no, Sandown's got 500 stalls. Yeah, so I can understand why they're going to Sandown now, because that's obviously going to be one of the bigger pull ones. Okay, so how am I getting on now? I remember what else I actually got. I think I picked up this little Batmobile because it actually had a Batman in it still. I think the version that I've got at the moment doesn't have it, and this is quite a neat and tiny version as well. So I imagine that's why I chose to grab that this time around. I picked up this little space shuttle, which is a Corgi, as I imagined it probably would be. But I have a Moonraker version of this little shuttle, and I just thought I'd pick up this one as well, just to sort of complete the set. I didn't think to test it, but its wheels are going up and down quite happily still after all these years. That's cool. Does it have an opening? Oh, it does have an opening. There we go. So it's got a little bit of sort of detailing there as well. And it is tiny, but it's again, it's just another example of the sort of thing that Corgi was doing at the time, as a sort of Corgi Juniors type thing. Although I'm not sure if this would have classed as a Corgi Juniors ship. But basically, anything spaceship wise always got my vote, and these were very much pocket money kind of pickups. And it's a decent enough model. And you can imagine that these are proper heat shield coloration as well, so fair dues to them. Can't knock it. And again, it's the sort of thing I would have paid a lot more for if I'd had to pay postage on eBay. So, now this was one of my really interesting pickups. I had to wait for a gentleman to come back before I did pick this up. I've got to disentangle it now. this one I bought with Mark from Blue Harvest Toys in mind. And not because he's necessarily a massive Thunderbirds fan, but because it's got a Woolworths price tag on it. And I know Mark has an interest in old Woolworths stores, so I thought it would be rude not to. So this is from 1992. And I do have an example of this Fab one already, but I don't have a carded version of it. And this is quite a nice, neat carded version, a little bit of crinkling on the corners, but generally speaking, it's not coming away from the card too much at all. So that is shiny and mint on card. So I was quite happy to pick that up for not very much more than its original advertised price. We had a funny little conversation about whether or not it was going to be 20 or 15 for both of these items. I won. Quite interesting as well to see the back as well, because you get more detail of the actual sort of range of Thunderbirds that they were doing there. I actually saw the rescue pack as well. I do see that on eBay from time to time, but as far as I'm aware, it's basically just a repeat of all the separately available items. So I don't really need it as such. But it's interesting to have a carded version of it there. And the final thing I got from that store was this. And this I remember very distinctly having, and it wasn't particularly drawing attention to itself, but I think it's a very nice example of the Bat Bike, Now, these, as the gentleman pointed out to me, are always missing the Batman that rides them, and apparently the Batman that rides them is a very, very hard thing to find. But I think that is quite a nice, pretty decent, clean example of it, because the windscreen is here. I haven't compared it with anything to know how intact it is, but I remember having this when I was little, and the kickstand is there, and quite happy with life, it seems. The handlebars are there and rotating the wheel quite happily, so you could sort of ride it in a circle if you wanted to. And the kickstands go back onto there quite happily. I mean, I can't see any obvious kind of breakages. It's got some stickers in the front there for the speedometers, so that's quite happy. Sticker there. Sticker there. So I think the only thing I haven't got in the bat range so far at this point is the larger Batcopter. That's probably about the only thing I haven't got, actually. Now, I say I wasn't trying to get this. It was just literally, it was a bit like on eBay when you sort of spot something in the kind of recommended list that you weren't looking for but would quite fancy. Exactly the same thing happened. That just caught my eye, so I grabbed it. Now, this final item, I meant to go and get. Actually, I'm just going to pause and come back to you. Yes, so this, of course, is proper Transformers top spin. This, however, is not proper Transformers top spin, but you can see that the similarities are quite marked. But the interesting thing is, this is not a knockoff of him that I've seen before. I do think it's gratuitously intended to take advantage of the similarity, yes, but it isn't a knockoff that I've seen before. That one is a much closer copy of him, but with a sort of red and blue plastic. So the really interesting thing about this is it's actually got a little bit more to it than you might think, because A, he's powered, but B, he does fold up like top spin, but then he's also got this extra bit here on the front. So he actually transforms more than top spin does. And I think if I pushed it, he would actually, he's probably going to lock in at the top there. But basically he ends up being quite a more convincing jet form, arguably, than top spin itself does. But I mean, you can see how sort of rough the sort of the mold is. It's quite strange. FD3329 apparently. Now brace yourself, because this is where things get really interesting. So not only does he do this, apparently he also. Okay. Oh yeah, there he goes. Really? It's going to go backwards, isn't it? Let me put him in the middle just in case something horrific happens to him. Not that he was expensive, mine, but. See? He moved. Oh, there he goes. Okay. Let's try that. Ooh, there you go. So yeah, he's actually got more. This is the remote control. I actually thought this was just knocking around in the bin. I didn't realise it was actually part of him initially. So yeah, he actually moves for some bizarre reason. So I've absolutely no idea what this chap's origins are, other than the fact that he seems to be based loosely on top spin, and his copyright 1985 apparently of somebody. Doesn't say who. maybe for obvious reasons. But his arms move around, and arguably, it's actually somebody trying to build on top spin. So I've no idea how unusual this is. I didn't pay an arm and a leg for him because I didn't really want to particularly. But I have been told that when you sort of go through the sort of normal stuff, you start getting more random stuff, and this struck me as a shining example of more random stuff. So that's why I picked him up. So yeah, but I mean, fair dues to him. He's 30 plus years old and he's still going. So he now has a new home, and his motor still works as well. And I've got 2 AA batteries out of it, so can't knock it. No battery cover, mind you, so it's literally been taped in place, bless him. But at least it's a good way. It demonstrated that he worked, so I can't argue with that. So yeah, I mean, it's another completely sort of random grouping. I mean, of all the things, the last thing I expected to find was probably that, because that did take me right back. But it's the sort of thing you would never in a million years think to go out and sort of look for and pick up, because where on earth would you find that, and how would you even describe it in such a way that you would be able to find it again? You're only going to get this sort of thing by looking at it in a place like that, where there are so many different things available to you to have a look at. So just a nice example of why sometimes it's worth making the effort and getting yourself out on a Sunday morning, well, like Sunday afternoon maybe ish, to actually go out and sort of go and look around somewhere. And it was really busy when I got there. You know, it's definitely something that people had heard of and knew of, because clearly it happens a lot in Doncaster. So I guess if you're local to Doncaster, it's not an unusual thing at all. But this is all a bit, you know, something of a new world for me, I suppose. So I'm just getting to understand the rules of the game, so to speak. But I really enjoyed it, because I felt like I was channeling some of the YouTube knowledge and sort of real world knowledge that I've picked up over the last few months, and you know, I didn't, for example, accept first offer on price necessarily. You know, I tried to bargain people down, or I just left it if I thought it was too much. Stuff that I saw that I didn't pick up included sort of Robotech figures. I saw a Pink Panther card, but it was 25 quid, and I didn't really have time to bargain them down on it because I was running around seeing what else there was. But nothing, as I say, despite the fact that I'd made a want list, nothing on my want list was actually there. I nearly got another Playmates Starship. I've got a One-Man Warbird and a Klingon Vorcha at the moment, and they're quite good models. They're plasticky, but they're really good size models for display. There was an Enterprise there that I didn't pick up, but I think next time I go, I might see if that same store was there and try and pick one up. There was lots to be had. So well worth a visit if you're even vaguely local. And as I showed you in that catalogue, you know, clearly there are going to be others in other parts of the country throughout the year now that we're post-COVID. So go and have a look. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed that. Do like and subscribe as ever, and I'll come back to you in due course with some more detailed videos on these when I've got a bit more time. But I just thought I'd get this out today whilst the actual experience was fresh in my mind. Oh, and parking was available just across the way from the place. You've just got to kind of, if you came in from the direction I came in, you've got to kind of go down and around, and come back on yourself to be able to get into it. But it was free, no difficulties whatsoever, plenty of capacity, and it was all good. So that's it for now. Cheers.